It is once again my honor and privilege to call up our newly appointed city manager, Mr. Arthur Sori III. Manager.
Thank you, Chief, and welcome all to the city of North Miami Beach. I want to start by saying Chief came to me when he was getting ready to offer Mr. Ford the job and started explaining to me about Mr. Ford and all of his accolades. I said, Chief, I know who he is. You know, it's funny and I met him in another circle, but everybody knows who Deputy Chief Ford is, and it's just great to have you a part of the team. You know, easy win from you walking in the door. You know, there's such a great man gets appointed, everybody comes out. And then I'm happy because everybody knows who I am now because they come to see him. At this time, I'd like to call up our mayor, Anthony D. Filippo, to introduce the mayor and commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you to everyone here this evening, honorable guests. Welcome to the great city of North Miami Beach. It's with great pride that I stand before you this afternoon on such a marvelous occasion that we all gather together to honor our next Deputy Chief, Mr. Ervens Ford. Folks, one of the most diverse communities you will see in North Miami Beach, you're seeing here today. One of the most diverse commissions in Dade County, you're seeing here today. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce my fellow colleagues that I work with every day and together, starting with Vice Mayor Paulie Villard, Commissioner Daniela Jean, Commissioner Michael Joseph, Commissioner Barbara Kramer, Commissioner Mackenzie Florimon, and not with us today, but here in spirit, Commissioner Fortuna Smucker. Folks, we have a tremendous team, and I want to reassure each and every one of you here today, and I want to reassure our soonly noon to be Deputy Chief, that we stand behind you 100%, that we know that you have this city, our baby, in the palm of your hands, that you are receiving, and you are going to be in the position holding a city that has 3 Excelsior Awards, nationwide has been recognized for its accomplishments, even on 60 Minutes, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to bring here to the city. Now, normally I would probably say you have big shoes to fill, but after reading your resume and your report and everything you've done, I think you're coming in with pretty big shoes already. So, keeping my comments short, I want to say thank you all for coming out this evening. And on behalf of the great city of North Miami Beach, God bless you, be safe. And to our Deputy Chief, we love you. Stay safe. And anything you need, you know you have your team behind you. Right on.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. Vice Mayor, thank you. So before we get started, I wrote a quick speech. A lot of you that know me know that I don't like speaking in front of people. That was a joke. Yeah, hold on. So welcome, friends and family, welcome. This is really an honorable moment for me to stand up here in front of you to move forward with Ervens as the Deputy Chief of North Miami Beach. Many of you that don't know, I was born and raised in the city until I was 17 years old. I grew up right across the street from the police department. I've always had great visions and dreams for this city, and part of my vision now is moving forward in my law enforcement careers to bring somebody on board that can help us to that next step. And Ervens is that guy. Ervens is that guy that I can trust. with my other command staff members implicitly that we're all going to make the right decisions together that's going to benefit the community, that's going to support locking bad people up, that's going to support police officers doing the right thing in the light of transparency, in the light of being open with what we do, not hiding behind a badge and not making excuses for anything that we do and accepting responsibility for the things that we do wrong. A little bit about Ervens Ford and I. Mr. Ford and I first met in 2008 on one of the worst calls an officer can ever respond to. This was like no other scene that I had ever been on in my entire career. This was a cold-blooded murder of a City of Miami detective, James Walker. Detective Walker was murdered during a violent gang shooting in our city. Working together with all of our partners, the City of Miami, North Miami Beach, FDLE, the FBI, multiple agencies throughout Miami-Dade County and Broward County, we were able to catch the person responsible for Detective Walker's murder. I actually placed the handcuffs on the man who killed Detective Walker. That was one of the best days of my career. Through the meeting with Ervens and I on that day, I realized what a great person he was, what a strong soul he had, and what a commitment to the job that he had. And his vision as a person was to always do the right thing and always say the right thing. And I just really, really, really looked up to him. And then I saw him on the first 48, and that sold it for me. Ervens was raised in Little Haiti in a house where his parents have and still live since 1974. Ervens joined the U.S. Army in 1984, and he left the Army in 1988. Ervens, don't kill me if I get this wrong. During his stint in the military, Ervens attended college at night while he finished his degree, while attending to his duties in the military. Ervens began his law enforcement career as a military police officer. Like me, he wanted to be a police officer at a very young age. So this to us is not a job, it's our career. And we take this job very seriously and hold it very dear to our heart. One of the many highlights in Ervens' military career was being part of the security detail for the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, Korea. After being discharged from the military, Ervens applied and was hired by the Miami Police Department in early 1989. He spent his first 7 years working the midnight shift in Little Haiti and Model City. During that period, Ervens received numerous commendations for bravery. I was working with a complaint before I got here, so I just have to clarify that. For bravery, apprehension of violent offenders, and dedication to the job, all while continuing his education during his off time. One thing that is a denominator that is very important to me as a chief of police is that he continued his education. Continuing your education is a selling point for me, because it took me 45 years, but I finished my master's degree, and I never gave up. And just so you know, Ervens is 8 days older than Ervens. He was born February 13, 66, I'm February 5th, 66. So now you got two Aquarians in office. Additionally, Ervens graduated from Barry University with degrees in management and public administration. He graduated calligraphy school, Florida Criminal Justice Executive Training, University of Louisville Command Officer course, the Southern Police Institute Police Administration, and countless on-the-job training courses. In 1966, Ervens was transferred to the Homicide Unit, which is one of the most prestigious assignments a police officer can be assigned. Ervens worked in the Homicide Bureau where he investigated some very high-profile cases. Many of you know that Ervens' great work was highlighted on the first 48. In 2018, Ervens was promoted to a supervisor in the Homicide Bureau. Ervens was later promoted to major and took over all police-related matters in the Little Haiti area. Ervens worked very closely with the community to improve police relations, decrease complaints, and lower violent crimes. That's also what sold me. Ervens has served and is serving on several panels. He has remained active in the community, continuing to empower people and show true leadership. Ervens currently serves on the board of directors with the alternative program, Black Man Roundtable, and is Commissioner Edmondson's appointed board member on the Miami-Dade Community Relations Bureau, CRB. Ervens is currently the chairman of the Miami-Dade County Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement Committee, which was created to help bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. Again, directly in line with our vision in the city of North Miami Beach. The North Miami Beach Police Department is a progressive police organization with a focus on providing superior service. With this vision in mind, we work to collaborate with community members, city departments, and our partners in law enforcement, mental health, and victim service organizations. Our training reinforces the importance of building strong relationships with community members, both residents and non-residents alike. We prioritize training relating to procedural justice, implicit bias, and mental health crisis response and de-escalation techniques. That is the fabric of this police department. We are so excited to have Ervens join our family and help lead the greatest police department in the world. I'll say that again, the greatest police department in the world. Ervens brings a lot of great knowledge, experience, and leadership skills to the North Miami Beach Police Department. Enough of me speaking, I'd like to introduce my new deputy, our new deputy chief, Mr. Ervens Ford. So before he gives his speech, it's my honor to call up State Attorney Kathy Rundle. Please come on up. She's going to do the swearing in. I got so excited I almost forgot.
Sorry to disappoint you,
That's
Chief.
okay. That's all right.
How are you? First, I got to do first things
Yes,
first.
of course. Absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
So, if I may, can I say a few words?
Yes.
Point of personal privilege. Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. You can sit down. It's going to be a few words. Thank you. I'm just so happy to be here and be part of the swearing-in ceremony of the North Miami Beach Deputy Chief Ervens Ford. And of course, this is an extremely proud day for him and for you, Chief Rand. Thank you for the wisdom in selecting him. It's a wonderful day, a proud day for North Miami Beach and for all the residents here, especially those of Haitian heritage. To have a son rise to this important policing command is certainly important. But to have someone who has grown up in the little Haiti community, who understands all the subtleties of the Haitian culture from his firsthand perspective, and who understands the Latin community from the inside as well from his firsthand perspective, it's like getting two insights, two viewpoints, and two visions all bound together. After all, there's no such thing as too much understanding in this world. Our community and this North Miami Beach community is often, and as are all of us, at a crossroad in this world. And how better to add to the public safety than to have as your deputy chief a man who has gone face to face with violent killers for 16 years as an esteemed and respected, deeply appreciated homicide investigator, of whom many of his colleagues are here today. And while as a commander of the city of Miami's North District, overseeing 1/3 of the entire city of Miami Police Department, he worked constantly to better his officers' relationship with the community that he and they served. I was particularly moved by his efforts to get his Creole-speaking officers to come back to Little Haiti, to help educate the community and to be more accessible. You cannot help but be impressed by the fact that each year Ervens Ford was commander of Little Haiti. He and his team were able to lower violent crime by 5 to 10%. I'm very proud to tell you, if you don't know, that I was very blessed to have Deputy Chief Ervens Ford today, but of yesterday, an investigator in my office for the last 3 years. I'm so sorry to lose you. I'm happy you were with us.
Thank you, ma'am.
But I'm sorry to see you go. But you're going to a wonderful place. And I'm very happy for all of you, the residents of North Miami Beach, to have such a wonderful professional as part of your team. So with that, I'd like to do two things. Deputy Chief, if you would please. First, I want to give you, on behalf of my office and all the wonderful men and women who work there that you know and who admire you, appreciate you, respect you, and truly, you're in their heart. We love you. So it's just a little token, it's in plastic, we can't even afford wood. But thank you so much, Ervens, for everything, and a certificate of appreciation. And so, with that, the moment has arrived.
Yes, ma'am.
I broke it up into little chops, okay? Because I appreciate when they do that for me, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So if you would please, raise your right hand
Yes, ma'am.
and then repeat after me. I, Ervens Ford,
I, Ervens Ford,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
and of the Charter of the City of North Miami Beach,
and the Charter of the City of North Miami Beach.
that I am duly qualified
I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the Constitution of the state
under the Constitution of the state
and the Charter of the City of North Miami Beach,
and the Charter of the City of North Miami Beach.
and that I will well
I will well
and faithfully
and faithfully
perform the duties
perform the duties
of Deputy Chief of Police,
of Deputy Chief of Police,
upon which I am now about to enter,
upon which I'm about to enter.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may take your seats.
Cameron, come in. As part of the ceremony, Deputy Chief Ford is going to call up his very special family members to pin him. And we suggest that you pin him very strongly. We like to see a little bit of bleeding, that way we know that he's truly in it to win it. So we sharpened the pin for you.
That's my granddaughter.
My honor to introduce Deputy Chief Ervens Ford.
Thank you, Ms. Rhonda. A phenomenal human being. When it came time for me to decide on the oath, I couldn't think of anybody else. Again, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by saying, to God be the glory. Without whom none of this would be possible. And I see two gentlemen sitting there, particularly, you would know what I'm talking about. We have a couple of preachers in the house, so I will not make any attempts to preach. That's their job. I searched for words that best describe the emotion I'm feeling here today. I couldn't find any words that fit the moment. I am humbly honored, and I have to acknowledge this moment is much bigger than me, with the highest sense of personal gratitude. I have accomplished many milestones in my law enforcement career, but this is without parallel. There are so many people here who played a role in my success and made it possible for me to accept this position today. It would be impossible to acknowledge them all. First, I want to acknowledge and thank you, Mayor Anthony DeFalino, Vice Mayor Paulie Villard, and Color, the People's Champion. And all the commissioners, Daniela Jean, ladies first, of course. Smucker, who couldn't be here. Barbara Kramer, who I've had an opportunity to speak with on a couple of occasions. Thank you so much. Michael Joseph, thank you, sir. And Mackenzie Flormont, we've met in the past. And I will also want to thank our city manager, Steve City Manager. Arthur Sora, I don't know if I mentioned your name when you came up, Arthur Sora, for entrusting me to assist Chief Richard and providing the citizens of North Miami Beach with the most fair, impartial, and effective police services possible. I want to extend a special thanks to Chief Rand, not just for recruiting me and hiring me and giving me this opportunity, but for putting together putting North Miami Beach's needs before anything else. He should be commended. And I think he spoke so highly of me earlier, there's not a whole lot I could say about the process. He should be commended for orchestrating and conducting a smooth transition of power. The process did not interrupt police needs. He carried on, he proceeded with the process while providing the best services possible. At no point was the service interrupted, so he should be given credit for that. This is one of the best police departments anywhere. I know you heard that a couple of times, and I'm here to tell you, I vouch and I second that emotion. That's a song, y'all. And that's due in part to the leadership that's already in place here. I've met a lot of the staff members. I'm very impressed. And moving forward, and as you've heard, I've done a lot in my career, and whatever I'm able to add to what they're already doing would only make things a lot better. And I assure you, we will lead with patience under adversity and show courage under fire. I could assure you that I have Chief Rand's passions for meeting the needs of this community. If you ever listen to him speak, North Miami Beach, over and over. And he lived and breathes the city, he grew up here. And I've had the same emotions when I ran Little Haiti. Every other word was Little Haiti. And again, like I was saying before, he put the needs of this department before anything else. And that's important. My loyalty is with Rand. We share the same passion for success and total commitment to doing the right thing. We expect the same commitment from every one of our police officers. It should also be that it would be an ingratitude on my part not to recognize and acknowledging some of the individuals who had a positive influence in my long career in law enforcement. The earliest, I don't know if Chief Darling is here, shortly in 1980, shortly after the McDuffie riot, I was a junior at Miami Edison. And as a young black man in that area at the time, we just experienced a riot. Our views of police officers were not very kind. And that's when I met Chief Darling. He was a volunteer young police officer. He came over to Miami Edison and assisted with the coaching. I saw him in uniform, and I saw how he interacted with us, and that made a difference, and that started my passion. That gave me a platform of what I wanted to do in life. And that's thanks to Chief Darling. I think he's in here somewhere. He's flying in from Memphis, I believe. It's also very important that I've been influenced by some great leaders from the Miami Police Department, Chief Darling in particular. Besides Chief Darling, Cheatham is here somewhere. Thank you. Cheatham was the very first retired Chief Cheatham. And Al Katera, I don't believe he's here, but Cheatham and Katera, I have to give a lot of credit to my success because they were the first police officer in a position of power that I was really impressed with because of their fairness, of the way they interacted. Interaction is of utmost importance. And they interacted with the common officers, with the rank and file. And just to hear them speak, just to know that they have an interest in what you're doing, not just work related, but on a personal level. That goes a long way, that makes a difference. I was also very fortunate to work in homicide. I think that's been mentioned a few times here. I work with some of the best investigators anywhere. And to work in homicide, being compassionate is not, I don't do the word justice, it's a requirement to be a good homicide investigator. These were some of the most compassionate people that I've encountered, and I'm still friends with them today. Folks like John Burmaster, who commanded the homicide unit, Eunice Cooper, also former commander of the homicide unit, past one, I'm just going to name some of the people here now. Emiliano Tamayo worked with me on homicide. The compassion in their heart was just unbelievable. And again, if you go down the list of former homicide investigators, you'll see a majority of them went on to become chief of police. So when I was a chief, we had Chief Eddie Avila. We had several other chiefs that went on, and because of what you learn in the homicide unit, because of it's a platform to really get you going, get you to understand, get you to understand what it is to go beyond compassion. Notice I mentioned several chiefs. And one of the things they did for me is always encourage me to challenge myself. And I have to say, there were two people in particular in my career that always told me I could do better. And it's important to have somebody encourage you in life. Eunice Cooper, thank you very much. Everybody know how close Eunice and I were. And the other person, always, and will always be. The other person that encouraged me early on in my career was Mark Paul. So a lot of you didn't know Mark Paul. Mark Paul used to say to me, "You crossed over." He said it quite often. I didn't understand what he meant by that, "you crossed over." So finally I said, "What do you mean I crossed over?" And that's when he told me, you're about the only Haitian officer on the Miami Police Department who could literally, you're not typecast. You're not labeled as, you have to work late, you have to work certain assignment. He felt that I had what it took to work anywhere in the department. He felt that I had what it took to lead, to be a supervisor. And his goal, his objective was to try to get the other Haitian officers to understand, you are qualified, you're not typecast. You shouldn't be labeled. You should expand your horizon. And having listened to him, I told him, listen, granted, we are Haitian heritage, but it is crucial that we share our knowledge, not just share our knowledge, our culture, and resilient is a word that's normally used to describe those of us of Haitian heritage. Resiliency in police work is almost as important as being compassionate, especially if you're investigating cases and carry on as such. So that advice from Mark Paul went a long way with me based on what I've heard from Eunice and Mark Paul. I seek other assignments. I began to educate myself in management, educate myself in what it took to succeed. It's not necessarily just work in a certain area because you label, if you're Haitian officer, you work like Haiti and then you translators and so forth. And there was a group of us, I'm happy to say that, have done well. Folks like Wesley, I'm not sure she's here today. Wesley. And mentioning Wesley, she was my right-hand man for years. And not to go off the subject too far, but as a leader, those that work for you, you have to promote them, you have to empower them. Their success should be just as important as your success. And Wesley, I believe, is now the commander of the entire Coconut Grove area. She's doing an excellent job. Lodi, thank you for first saying it, and I think the Vice Mayor said Happy Haitian Heritage Month. Haitian Flag Day was 2 days ago. If you live here in South Florida, you probably have an idea of the history of the plight of the Haitians here in South Florida. And then you could understand why this moment is so important, why some folks here to witness history. We wasn't always welcome here. We wasn't always treated fairly. Only thing we ever asked for is to be treated with dignity and given an opportunity. and saying that I've been fortunate enough to be given that opportunity. For me to have failed would prove those that felt we were not qualified, we were not capable, was to prove them right, and I refuse to do that. And to understand the kind of person I am, I would have to introduce you to my parents. They're sitting here, Joseph Ford and Gisela Ford. They're my heroes. Let me tell you why they're my heroes. It's a quick story about my dad. I'm not going to take a long time. My dad, those of Haitian descent would understand. He was part of the security detail with Papa Doc back in the 60s. Yeah, he was part of the security detail. He was forced into exile because he refused to follow orders to violate individuals' rights simply for disagreeing with Papa Doc. And being sent into exile back then meant you had so much time to leave the country. And he had to overnight leave out of there, and for a period of time there was a standing order to shoot him on sight. So he fled from there instead of doing the wrong, what he felt was unjust, would be violating other folks' civil rights. He had a conviction to do the right thing, and he's instilled that in me over the years. Do the right thing by any cost. And that carries over to us leaders in the police department. I would always encourage our police officers, if the orders are wrong, it is okay to disobey those orders. And we will support you, there are times when you're going to get orders that you feel will devalue another human being. And it is okay. I know Chief Brennan and I will have your back, we will support you. Gisela Ford, sitting there with my dad. Her story is just as compelling as his. As a 16-year-old in 1961, shortly after Castro took over Cuba and turned the country communist, her family could only afford to send 3 of her 6 siblings out of the country. So at 16 years old, she took the risk of crossing the waters and coming over to the United States for a better life. And for a period of 30 years, she never saw her siblings again. And I say this to say, knowing this about my parents, how dare of me to disappoint them. Knowing the sacrifices they made, knowing the sacrifices they made for me to be here today. I have devoted a large part of my life to law enforcement as my profession, a proud, noble, and rewarding profession. As of late, there's been a movement to demonize all police officers based on the misconduct of a few. This constant police bashing has taken its toll on our young officers, our younger officers. It's part of the reason I still want to do this. I don't see the enthusiasm and the pride that I had as a young officer. You see a lot of officers. It's important to support our officers, and the fact that you're all here today, I know you all support the police. We all want to see the right thing being done by the police. And the majority of you I know personally, and I know you take part in better relations with the police. So I want to encourage you to continue to do that. These bashing of police officers taking its tolls on these young officers. It is imperative that we as leaders do everything in our power to motivate and prepare these officers to get through these tumultuous times. As leaders, we have to teach what we've learned over the years. We have to establish a culture of always doing the right thing. We must lead by example and develop a healthy, rewarding work environment without misconception. Chief Wren and I are big on officers' duty to intervene. Duty to intervene is, as a police officer, if I see another officer doing something wrong, it is required of me to intervene. There's many ways you could intervene. You could try to stop them. If you can't, if that's not possible, you have to report it. We want to make it clear that reporting a bad act by another officer will not create any personal liability or deny the reporting officer of any opportunities for advancement. One of the fear police officers normally have is that, well, if I'm seen as a snitch, my chances of moving up in the department is gone. I want an opportunity, so I want to go along to get along. Now, I have a step up when it comes to reporting bad doing. I am an example of that. You can report bad doing, bad behaviors, and still succeed. I say this to say, I've done it twice. On 2 separate occasions, I sat in federal court and testified. If you're familiar with Miami, we had the 395 shooting where officers were putting guns on subjects. I was the lead investigator in Daniel Hoban down in the Grove where a gun was placed on Mr. Hoban. And on 2 separate occasions, I sat in a courtroom without hesitation. I testified. So I'm able to tell the younger officers, if that's their excuse, look at me. I'm the Deputy Chief of Police. I've done it, and I'll do it again. So, we're experiencing an international social justice movement that calls for police reforms. And that is healthy. I'm actually for police reform. I've read the reform bill. I read all the proposals being made higher up. I believe Ms. Rundle's as a commission on police reform. I'm very familiar with it. We welcome it. The reason being, social injustice, institutionalized and systemic racism are very well documented in this country. It is, however, unfair to blame it all on the police. How often do we talk about the underlying factors that breed injustice, such as politics grown too corrupt, those in power grown too arrogant, criminals running rampant? You gotta stop blaming the criminals. Extremists growing too violent, a failing school system, and morals are low. We have to do a better job at morals. That's it, morals. You gotta have morals, okay? And through it all, as cop, we are expected to remain like a beacon in the night, shining on duty, honor, and country. Policing must serve the will of the people. And what we're seeing with the social justice movement is that more of society has developed a conscience. A lot of this movement has to do with some folks finally waking up, developing a conscience, saying that's wrong. We want to do better. We want to help you do better. So I'm not worried about the public being on my side. There's enough of you that's already doing that. And together we could overcome those whose true intent are to see this society crumble. What happens when we the people don't have a conscience? Terrible thing, slavery, genocide, I could go on and on. Racism of any sort is the biggest destroyer of peace. We often see racism perpetrated in the form of nationalism, which we shouldn't confuse with patriotism. Nationalism tells us what Americans should look like. American patriots support their neighbors regardless of their race, creed, sex, or religion. We have to do better when it comes to how we perceive our fellow man. I believe it was St. John, Pastor, who said, "You are a liar if you say you love God and you don't love your neighbor." How could you love God whom you do not see, if you do not love your neighbor who you see and could touch every day? What I'm saying is we in law enforcement can and will do better. But the real solutions lie within each and every community member, not just law enforcement. Right? Police officers are products of many cultures, many history, many traditions. That's why diversity within any police department is a first step to assuring fair treatment to all. You gotta have diversity within your department, especially here in South Florida. Diversity is the basis for dialogue and for learning mutual respect. It allows us to draw wisdom and inspiration from each other's cultures. We gain strength by combining what's foreign to us with what we are familiar with. It's a basic human instinct. We feel what we don't understand. I'm here to tell you that the majority of police incident interaction that goes bad as a result of fear. Yes, we have racism, but the majority of these incidents that goes wrong is a result of fear. And we could do a better job of training and educating our officers about each other. And that would eliminate a lot of that fear. And the way to do that is to diversify. And when you do have police officers whose behaviors are clearly out of racist ideas, thoughts, they need to be dealt with accordingly. If arrest is necessary, termination is necessary, prosecution, and that needs to be done swiftly. We need to send a message to the community. We will not stand for it, and this is how you deal with it. Again, I must refer back to the reform bill. I read up on it, and I'm happy to say Chief Rand's already addressing everything that's covered in the reform bill. We're not worrying about it. We're not against it. It has a lot to do with transparency, and we're doing that here, and we're going to continue to do it. We're not being asked. The community understands the police are essential and necessary. And because of the pure nature of the authority bestowed upon our police officer, professionalism and accountability are a must. Again, I could tell you, Chief Rand, and I demand it. We require it from every single man and woman under our command, without exception. We are also big proponents of community policing. And that calls for accountability from the public also. That's what I like about community policing. It involves the public. We need help from the public. And especially our NMB resident. This is a team effort. We want to encourage your involvement. We all want the same thing. Safety, to be treated with human dignity, with respect, and to be heard. You'd be surprised if you allow somebody just to speak their mind or to just hear them out. That goes a long way to prevent the perception of disrespect. You show a man respect, I will show you the majority of the time, they will conform. They will get in line. And you won't have these issues that we sometimes see between these interactions with law enforcement. The problem is not systemic and institutional police violence, but rather temporary and individual police brutality. The problem is not the police, but specific police officers who have betrayed their oath. Right? Before I close, I want to share something with you. This being the month of Police Memorial, Police Appreciation Week, we must never forget those of us who made the ultimate sacrifice. It's not just something to be a public servant, but to be a public servant that's willing to lay your life on the line for your fellow man says a lot about a person. It takes a special person to be a police officer. And to be good at it, you have to practice. You have to continue to learn. You have to continue, you have to have an open mind. And closed minds, you know what they say about closed minds. The reason I brought up Police Memorial and to not forget about these officers that died in the line of duty, I want to share something with you all. I rarely talk about The lowest point of my career was in late 2010. I was investigating a murder, senseless murder, like most of them are, unfortunately. A young man by the name of Johnny Sims. Yeah, I'm going to throw out names. Johnny Sims had just gotten out of prison. He's at home. His sister came and said, "This man called me a name." Johnny grabbed a gun, rode his bike over, shoots the man in the face, cold blood. I went ahead and secured an arrest warrant, signed an arrest warrant, spoke with the state attorney and got an arrest warrant for Mr. Sims. Couldn't find him. A few days later, I got a phone call from Roger Castillo. He works county warrants. He was going to help me look for Johnny Sims. And the next day, Roger and his team, including Amanda Hayward, found Johnny Sims at his mother's home. And they had moved, but I couldn't find him. In the process of trying to take him into custody, Johnny shot and killed both Castillo and Hayward. When I arrived on that scene, I was devastated. I questioned what I could have done differently. I knew it wasn't my fault, but the fact that it was my warrant they were executing and they both got killed. I said it was the lowest point in my law enforcement career because I considered quitting. I really did. My train of thoughts was everywhere. I was not in the right state of mind to do police work, which is why when Chief Rand mentioned to me he's going to start a program to identify police officers that's not that experienced traumatic incident that needs to be maybe taken off the street for a while, need to talk to a professional. When he mentioned that to me, I'm all for it, because for those next few days, I was not in the right state of mind to conduct police work. Some would say I should have went to see a psychiatrist, but I'm gonna say this, I'm not praying, but I spoke to the man. I spoke to the best psychiatrist there is. And if you don't know, that's God. I spoke to God, I prayed about it. God, what do you want me to do? These people lost their life. And I feel, again, I understand I'm not responsible, but it's you, it's out of, and it's in your heart as a human being. If you're not moved by the actions, by the entire incident, I still think it still bothers me today. However, I prayed about it and I believe God answered. A lot of times God answers us, we don't realize that, oh, God sent us messages, indications, and we don't pick up on it. And I'm gonna tell you how I knew it was God, a way of telling me, keep up the good work, don't quit. 2 days later, after this incident, we picked up another murder. A gentleman wasn't taking his medication. He's at a homeless shelter. He decided to bash this other homeless guy over the head and killed him. Walked away from the shelter. He come into the city of Miami, went to a park. There's a homeless man sleeping there. He did the same thing, picked up a rock, bashed him over the head and killed him. All this is occurring as county's working that day murder, city of Miami's working, we work on our murder. We're not aware of the two murders. My team and I out there working that murder. The only information we had was a black male, blue jean shirt, blue jeans, dark skin afro, about my height. As we were processing the scene, I was the supervisor. 7 a.m., I went to McDonald's to get coffee for the crime scene and the other investigators on the scene. As I'm driving back, I'm on Biscayne Boulevard, facing east, sitting in a police car by myself. This man comes walking directly in front of the police car, full of blood. He had committed 2 murders. I jumped out the car, screamed out to him. He was as humble as you could imagine, and he literally said to me in so many words, I think I was supposed to meet you at this intersection. To me, that was God's way of saying, don't quit. You're doing a good thing. And he kept walking as I not been there. And he's still hearing voices. He just killed two different locations. There's no doubt in my mind he would have killed somebody else. And going through that, I must say that that was God's way of telling me, you're doing the right thing. It's not your fault. And I proceeded. And what I got out of it is, I'm going to work harder. And those that needs to be arrested and put in jail, I'm going to work harder at putting them in jail. Because I believe this is a calling. Not every one of us get these messages. And to have gotten something and you ignore it, shame on you. You gotta, these little clues, these little indications that you get from higher up, you gotta pick up on those, and you just have to do better. And my journey in law enforcement has been great. And this is just a new chapter. And with the people behind me, this will be the best chapter yet.
Amen.
All right. I'm going to copy Jody right quick. Bear with me for a second. Monsieur, dames, et messieurs. Monsieur, dames et messieurs. Did I say that wrong? Mesdames et messieurs. Merci en pile. Communauté haïtienne, nous connaissons, c'est pas des difficultés nous gagnons. Nous te gagnons. Il y a juste côté nous arriver. Nous arrivons loin. Je suis fier pour dire mon c'est haïtien, mais parce que encore. Nous avons juge, nous avons commissionnaire, nous avons magistrat. C'est le problème nous avons dans la communauté haïtienne. Parfois nous gommons entre nous-mêmes. Nous arrivons loin plus si nous mettons tête ensemble. Les ancêtres ont un bail très simple. L'union fait la force. Ça veut dire. Ah, créole parler, créole comprendre. Si nous mettons tête ensemble, nous arrivons plus loin. Okay? Et ça seulement, gardez-nous, s'il vous plaît, continuez, organisez-nous ensemble. Et nous pas ennemis l'un à l'autre. All right. To my Hispanic friends, quiero reconocer a cuáles de ustedes haciendo Hispania. Una cosa que son certeza es que en todas las culturas que hablan español le dan un gran valor a la familia. Para los hispanos, la familia viene primero. Un nacimiento que empieza en el hogar. El nombre de la familia es honrado, respetado y valorado. Por favor, continúe enfocándose en estas grandes cualidades. Que tenemos unos a otros como familia, sin importar de dónde venga o cómo se ve. Porque al final del día, todos queremos lo mismo. Una comunidad segura, igualdad de oportunidades y el tratamiento justo. Tiene esas cosas en común. Nos hace a todos familia. And closing to my Jewish friends, I say to my Jewish friend, wishing you well to peace. Kol tov li shalom. Did I say that correctly? Li shalom. Kol tov. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming. If I didn't single you out, that's because it's dark in here. I couldn't see you. I love you all. Continue to support law enforcement. It's the backbone of every community. Again, thank you for coming, and good day. Thanks.
Just real quick before you leave, I wanted to recognize two very special guests, very important to the city of North Miami Beach. I want to recognize our city attorney, Mr. Hans Ottenot. And I also want to bring recognition and thank him for coming, former Mayor Andre Joseph. I'm sorry. Pierre, I'm sorry.
Not a Joseph yet.
Yes, I'm sorry, okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner, Councilman from North Miami.
And the councilman from North Miami, yes, and the councilman from North Miami. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much. And in closing, I'm going to wrap this up real quick. We have really good desserts outside for you to grab on your way out. I please ask that you just take one. Last time they all disappeared with one person. If any of you question one bit, 1 second about what North Miami Beach stands for, you have just seen it here today. You have just witnessed history here today. And Ervens, I'm here to tell you that from the bottom of my heart and from every person standing behind me and my command staff, you are always welcome in this city of North Miami Beach. And so is everybody else. Whether you're an immigrant, you're not from this country, you're welcome in the city of North Miami Beach. We have open doors to everybody. I just ask that you obey the law and you follow the code of North Miami Beach. And we promise to deliver the best services that we can. And I want to thank my command staff sitting here behind me. Without this command staff, I wouldn't be here today. Because none of this is about me, it's about them. I want to thank you for coming out. Please enjoy the desserts outside, and we look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you.